Jason, the designer of Duchy, a game inspired by wondering if I could create an area control game using only a deck of cards. In Duchy, players are dukes and duchesses vying to build the largest and most valuable duchy in the land. It's a fortress-building, medieval area control game with a diverse array of units and structures sitting on varied terrain, all in a compact, card-only package. Let's take a look. Duchy is played on a card-based map with different terrain on each space: fields, forests, mountains, and lakes. This is the starting layout for a 3-player game. Each player begins with a solitary structure, their keep, which is an indestructible castle at the heart of their duchy. Players acquire cards representing structures that can be built on the map, and also units that can attack and take other actions. Each turn, players gain production points from their keep and structures marked with a barrel icon, such as farms. Players acquire cards into their hands by drawing them from the deck, or by purchasing them at the market, where the newest card revealed costs 3 points, the prior one costs 2 points, and the oldest card costs 1 point. After a unit card has been played or a structure is destroyed, it goes into the discard pile. Duchy is divided into 3 ages, with increasing production point caps and hand limits in each successive age. These limits are shown on the player aids. Each structure and unit card is first introduced during a particular age. Thus, the game begins with a deck of all the Age 1 cards. Going through a deck is what triggers the changing of the age. When the last card of the Age 1 deck is drawn, the age ends, typically during a player's card collection phase at the end of their turn. The Age 2 cards are shuffled into the discard pile to form the Age 2 deck, and play resumes. This process is repeated when the Age 2 deck runs out and the Age 3 deck is constructed. When the last card is drawn from the Age 3 deck, the other players each get one last turn, and then the game ends and the duchies are scored. Scoring is simple. Every space in or controlled by a duchy is worth 1 point, with a few tiebreakers for same-sized duchies. Players take actions based on the following phases in the following order, which you can remember with the mnemonic A, B, C, D, E. Attack with one or more of your units, if desired. Any unit action can be taken here, not just attacks. For example, villagers can clear forests into fields. Build structures on the map, if desired. Collect additional cards into your hand by buying them from the deck or the market. Discard from your hand if you are over the hand limit. And finally, enrich the market by filling in any missing cards. Building structures is the second phase of a turn after attacking, but we'll go over building first as a foundation of the game. As mentioned, each player's duchy starts with a keep, which is an indestructible fortress that all other cards in your duchy must connect to. Surrounding the keep are walled structures, such as the fortification, stable, and armory. These are distinguished by a thick border indicating their heavier defenses. These walled structures form a continuous space around each keep, known as the duchy's manor. All walled structures must be built so that you can trace a continuous path of walled structures from the new structure to the manor. Additionally, they cannot be built adjacent to another player's duchy. Imagine trying to construct a fortress next to an enemy fort. If a walled structure becomes disconnected from its duchy, it is no longer part of any duchy. It can be reconnected to that same duchy or a different one. In addition to walled structures, there are open structures without thick borders, representing surrounding lands such as farms, fishing fleets, and mines. Like walled structures, open structures have to be built adjacent to a duchy's manor. Unlike walled structures, however, open structures can be built adjacent to another player's duchy. To continue the earlier example, while constructing a fort near an enemy's fortress is nearly impossible, feudal lords like arable land next to their manor being cultivated into a productive farm. Since open structures are not part of a specific manor, control of open structures and any production points and endgame victory points that they generate goes to the duchy with the most cards orthogonally adjacent to that structure. If influence on an open structure is tied, No duchy gets production points. However, village structures do act as tiebreakers. Think of them as adding an additional 0.1 points of influence. Beatrice, player 3, has 3 structure cards in her hand that she would like to place: an armory, a village, and a farm. The armory is restricted to only being built on fields, and there is only one field that connects to her 3-card manor. Therefore, she plays the armory in that field. The village is a much more flexible card in terms of terrain. The village can be built on field, mountain, or forest. Of the spaces orthogonally surrounding her now extended manor, the only place on which she may not build is the mountain that would join her manor to another duke's manor. Another consideration, though, is being able to place her farm. At the moment, there is no orthogonally adjacent space on which she may play her farm, because the farm requires a field. By playing her village on the mountain to the south of her manor, this now allows her to play her farm onto the field next to that village. Thus, she was able to place all 3 structures. Now let's take a look at the attack phase. Beatrice would like to mount an attack on Andrew's armory. She has 3 units she can use for this, in theory: a catapult, cavalry, and infantry. Unfortunately, the catapult can only traverse open field. There is no way for the catapult to depart from any of her walled structures and make it to the armory. The infantry may make the trek from the walled village to the armory. Because this involves traversing mountain spaces, this will involve moving a total of 3 spaces from the village from which they're departing: 1, 2, 3. The infantry has 3 movement points, so this is possible. Because the cavalry has such a long range, this allows for the cavalry to depart from the armory and invoke its special power. Once per turn for a given armory, a departing attacking unit picks up an extra attack point. Therefore, there's much reason to depart from the armory if possible. The cavalry can depart from the armory and traverse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces to reach the opposing armory. Or the cavalry can actually do it in fewer steps by simply moving to their own walled village and traversing the mountain. This allows for Beatrice to attack with a total of 3 attack points: 1 from the infantry and 2 from the cavalry, because the cavalry has a base of 1, plus they pick up an additional attack point from the armory. When Andrew defends, if he does nothing, because the 3 attack points exceed the 2 inherent defense points of the armory, it will be completely annihilated and removed from the map. However, Andrew is able to respond with a single villager to defend the armory. This raises the defense level of the armory to 3. Because the attack and defense levels are equal, this means that rather than being completely annihilated, the armory is instead turned to rubble. It is no longer in Andrew's possession. It now becomes a new type of terrain on the map: rubble. Now for the collecting cards phase. First, Beatrice sums her production points. She gets a base production of 3 just for having a keep, but she also controls 3 different open structures, all of which have production value. Therefore, she has a total of 6 production points to spend. Here's how those points are spent. It costs 1 point to look at a card from the top of the deck, and it costs another point to keep one of those cards. Also, the cards in the market cost 3, 2, and 1, respectively. She will spend her 6 production points as follows. she will spend 1 point on the cheapest card from the market and 2 points on the next one. She will spend her remaining 3 points to look at 2 cards and then retain one of them. She takes the top 2 cards off the deck, looks at them, and discards the one that she does not want. After collecting cards, don't forget to discard and then enrich the market. That's an overview of the rules of Duchy. Be sure to watch out for the vicious sever and then steal combination, attack and then build. When someone takes a piece of your Duchy, it can really hurt. Thanks for your time. I hope you have as much fun playing Duchy as I had designing it.